one.
Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Just Hospitality with Simon and Victoria. We were talking just before we started recording, Vic and I, we cannot believe we've hit 5 weeks. This is crazy. And I know we say this every week, but you know, it is incredibly humbling that there's people who are watching week after week or listening week after week and engaging, and it's just wonderful to see. Moving straight into this week's podcast, because we've got quite a lot of ground to cover. We decided to do quite a deep dive into a leadership technique. And what we're going to talk about is the nurturing, the development, the looking after, the maintaining of a team's A players. That is the elite members of your team. So we're going to talk about how to identify them, about how cultural fit is so much more important than anything else, about how to communicate, about how to identify people's strengths, and quite a lot of other subjects. Vic and I wanted to keep this podcast to around about between 25 and 35 minutes. We don't want to go long form and allow people to get bored and check out. We want it to be quite snappy, something you could listen to on the train to work. So with that in mind, and this topic being so meaty, we're going to split it over 2 weeks. And the first part, we're going to talk specifically about A players and developing them today. What would be great is at the end of this, once we've got it up online, if we could get some engagement, some conversations going, and hopefully some of our listeners can steer the subject matter that we're going to cover next week within the topic of A players. This is something really close to my heart. I'm really, really excited about this. So I absolutely love the whole theology and getting down and dirty with your team. So this is going to be cool. What's your feelings on today, Vic?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So, we want these to be interactive. So as much as it's great that us two get to have a chat once a week and we record it and put it out, having people kind of interact and giving us some feedback on what you want us to talk about next would be even better. So yeah, we'd really appreciate that. And I'm really excited on this to talk about this topic today of nurturing A players. And the reasons that we need to do it. So if you don't mind, Si, I'll go straight in with the reason why we need to nurture talent in the business.
Brilliant.
So first of all, why do we need A players? Well, we need A players and we need amazing talent to drive our business forward and to develop, enhance, increase our success. You can have the best product or the best service in the world, but without the right talent to get it to market and deliver that product or service, you're never going to be successful. So that's the first thing you need to do, is you need to hold your hands up and admit, I need these people. I need this brilliant talent. And then once you've got that talent, what you need to do is you need to nurture it. So you really need to look after that talent. Now, I'm not talking about giving them a hug and saying, are you okay, on a day-to-day basis. I'm talking about really understanding those A players, getting to know them, and then finding out and making sure you can enhance their talent for them, but also, as importantly, for your business. And I think there's a number of ways you can do that. So, first of all, we've talked about getting that talent on board and attracting that talent. When we're talking about nurturing and retaining that talent, it's really about making sure that you're looking at that talent and making sure that they know where they're going with their career and with your organization individually, but also collectively. How does that talent work with the team, and where is it going to drive them as a team and your business to in the future? So first thing is to attract that talent. Second thing is to retain that talent. I know we've done podcasts on retention, so I'm not going to go into that in too much detail, but there's a couple of other things that we need to do. We need to make sure that when we've got that talent, you said it, you put it really brilliantly before when we were talking, so A players like to work with A players. Okay?
Absolutely.
The best wants to work with the best. So if you've got the best and you want to attract the best, there's a number of ways you can do that. But one of the key things is make sure your existing talent is a true advocate of your business. Because if you've got a great ops director and they know where they're going, but they know they need other people and more talent to work with them to drive that, then they'll be your best promoters. And they will find you more talent to attract. And obviously you then nurture that and retain that as well. And throughout all of this, you've obviously got to maintain and you've got to communicate with this talent and make sure that they're happy. And you're going to talk a bit about playing on their strengths and things. So I know that. But one other point I want to make before we move on to identifying people's strengths and things is identifying the not so right talent. So that's the most polite way I can put it. But you really need to be asking questions of yourself and of your business. Is this person right for my business? Is this person going to enhance? Is it going to help us grow? Are we on the right channel? Are we all on the same path together? Are we going in the right direction? If you're not, you need to be having those conversations with that talent that perhaps you're not right for each other. And the reason you need to do that is because that will directly impact those A players, because if they think I'm an A player, but I'm working with C, D, E players, then they're not going to be happy and they're not going to be nurtured and they're not going to want to stay. Anything you want to add to that on the kind of the reasons why we should and what we need to be doing, Si?
Look, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying here. And to deal with your last point first, before I get into a bit of strength, you know, you must have open and honest thought process amongst you with yourself, and you must be able to act on that. If someone isn't right for the business, there's a way of moving that along. Once you're honest and you've identified that's a problem, you need to do it. And you can do it in a humane way, a nice way, taking care of all the factors that would make someone uncomfortable. I think we've got that down in our notes for the latter part of next week. So I'll go in more detail, but I will back you up next week. But I will back you up 100% and go, if you don't do that, you're actually damaging the person in role. You're not helping anyone by keeping them in a job that they're not suited for. You're not helping your business, you're not helping yourself, and you're not helping that person. Just a very quick example, I bumped into a pub, an excellent pub general manager about 6 months ago in his new pub that I exited from a business 2 years ago. He thanked me, told me I'd helped set him on the right track, and sat with me and my family for the entire lunch. And I've seen him loads of times since, because it was done, the exiting process was done with care and with empathy and with kindness and with time. So it wasn't like he was booted out of the business. We just had to part ways. And he's now on a much better path. So I agree with that. And the A players only work with A players. Look, that's a big Steve Jobs quote, and it's right. The only thing I would say, and this is something we're going to tackle all the way through this, is boredom is the death of talent. So hold that thought, okay? While we talk a little bit now, I want to go into identifying strengths. You need to look, when you're looking at a diverse team, you need to find everyone's strengths. And there's ways you can do it internally and have discussions about it. And there's ways of bringing in external methodologies to help. I worked with a company and we used Marcus Buckingham's Now Discover Your Strength. You discover your own strengths. You have these big workshops where you talk about it. I discovered strengths in me that I thought I didn't realize I had. And then I learned to utilize them, and it's made me much more comfortable. The theory behind this is you're never going to take something that you're a D at. So if, let's say you're at school and you're a D in maths, no matter how hard you work, you're never going to become an A+ student in maths. You're going to become at best C+, A-, B-, okay? And it's going to take a lot of work and it's going to be very uncomfortable. But if you're a B+ player at English, for example, while you're at school, if you work really hard, you can become an A+ English person. And that is going to help boost you all the way. So employers who try and constantly work on their team's weaknesses are missing a complete trick here. You need to get the weaknesses to an acceptable level for somebody to be able to do their job, but focus on their strength. The employee will be much happier, much more comfortable, and much more effective in their role. Just another point on strengths that's really, really important as a team, or something that's really useful at least. If you draft the list of the strengths you need to run your business, or the strengths that are needed to elevate your business, and then you do your strength exercises to work out who's got what, you're going to see gaps. You're going to see double ups and what you need to do is use that as a recruitment and a nurturing tool to get the best out of your team. We did this exercise 11 or 12 years ago now in a company I worked with, and we were so open with each other about our strengths and about what we hated doing and what we loved doing. It turned out that as a team, we were throwing each other work. So marketing would come to me, who was running the operations, and going, hey, listen, I've done this, but now I'm kind of at the end of where I'm good at. You're great at maximizing things. Can you maximize this campaign? I'd get it to a certain point and then throw it towards one of my team members who was great at deep diving the process needed to make everything happen. She loved getting right into the nitty gritty, whereas I'm more of a, yeah, look, this is the master plan, this is the strategic plan, let's get on with it. We all worked together, and every exercise we did got elevated by 1,000% by the fact we were respectfully and kindly using each other's strengths. A term for this that I like is deep cross collaboration. And the other thing about this is what you end up is delivering pride into all those individuals who are utilizing their strengths. Victoria, I'm going to hand to you in a sec, but I just wanted to say something that I missed off the intro, and I apologize for that. We're talking about A players here and the identification and utilization of A players. And no key to any business in any sector will be as important to its success as ensuring you are surrounded by an amazing team of A players who are going to drive your business forward. And I just probably should have put that in the beginning. I'll write it in some text when we launch the podcast, but I think it's really important. Anyway, that's kind of my little bit about strengths over. Just to summarize, discover everybody's strengths, list them, celebrate them, utilize them, and use any gaps you've got in your company's need for strengths as a great recruitment tool. Victoria, would you like to add anything that before you move into cultural fit over technical skill?
Yeah, I just think really so, just to emphasize the point of playing to people's strengths. For me, that is working smart as a business. I always, obviously, you've got the age of saying work smarter, not harder. Why would you want to spend double the time bringing someone from a D to a B when you can spend half the time bringing them from a B to an A? So yeah, makes complete sense to me. Yeah, just to reinforce.
You said in one sentence that I took about 27 sentences today. So, so we've discovered your strength rather than mine.
Summarising it is. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree on the points you make there. So, and while we're talking about strengths and weaknesses, obviously we all have individual strengths, skills, etc. But what I think is really important when we're looking at A players and talent and nurturing talent is cultural fit versus skills, and also attitude versus skills. Because I think I used the example earlier when we were chatting, like you can be the most talented tennis player in the world, but if you're not willing to pick up a racket or travel down to Wimbledon to play, those skills are irrelevant. Same principle applies in business. You need to have the right attitude. You need to have the right people who can work in that, as you mentioned, deep cross collaborative environment. So,
deep cross collaboration. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. So they have to have that attitude, and they have to fit with you culturally to be able to drive your business. Skills can be taught. I'm not saying we can get someone from a D to an A in maths, but if there are elements of skills that need to be taught, they can be. But the attitude and cultural fit will make such a bigger difference to your business than those individual skills will, especially when you're playing to people's skill strengths. If you're playing to their strengths and they've got the right attitude and cultural fit, why are we even having this conversation? That's it. Boom.
Agreed. And just to chip in a minute, Jack Welch, the first of the great modern leaders from General Electric, his thing was really clear. He used to manage CEOs. He'd have the CEO of Disney, the CEO of... It didn't matter how well they were performing financially. If they weren't living the cultural values of the organization, they were given one chance and then sacked. Weirdly. But if they were living the values and the culture, but underperforming financially, they got given a lot of chances, a lot of support. So what he basically did was put the culture and values above the technicality of the job.
Yeah, because culture, values, attitude will get you everywhere. So I think it's something like 95% is attitude and 5% is talent and skills. You know, if you've got that willingness to learn and grow and you fit within the organization, then it's going to work.
Agreed.
Brilliant. So next, I think we wanted to talk about kind of communication within the A players world.
Yeah. I'm a mad fanatic about communication. Can I just check my sound quickly with you, Vic? Are we all right? Is my sound all
All
right?
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a fanatic about communication in all aspects of my life because I've realised it's important. In fact, I have a really good friend who I mentioned last week, Dave Elliott, and me and him constantly debate the number one key thing in leadership. He thinks it's empathy. I think it's communication. Some weeks I think it, and it's a great debate. But on this, for the purposes of managing A players, you need both. But to talk about communication, A players are like, they aren't to be really talented. They aren't one size fits all, and you can't take a one size fits all level of communication with these guys. You need to spend a lot of time with them individually, and you need to find ways to communicate with them that resonates with them. Mm-hmm. Quite a lot of the serious talent I've worked with simply needed you to point them in the right direction, give them the task, and then get that out their way. Okay? Checking in periodically. I've also worked with team members who need a lot of pings and check-ins, and they want to speak, regularly and check that the work's right. They need a lot of praise and just need a lot of communication with other people don't. That's fine. You as a leader need to take the time to understand each one of your players. If you've got a true team of A players, you're working with some of the best talent in your sector. Okay? You can't neglect them. You've got to invest in your own energy into finding what works for them. The big thing is how you communicate is individual, but what you communicate has to remain consistent. You need to make sure the messaging for everyone is the same, because you've got a team of wild stallions pulling in different directions. You got a problem. You've got to work really hard to keep everyone going in the same direction. Another point on communication, or two further points I'd make, is one, when you're communicating with your team and you're a leader, when you're communicating with your team, don't be the expert in the room. All right, be the last person to speak. Take all that information in. Allow time and space for your A players to develop. All right. Allow debate and diagnosis of each situation. You get a far broader result. I was on the board of a company a few years ago, and we used to go into a room and we'd spend a day in there debating and arguing and throwing things and whatever it might be to stress test each campaign, each project, each development plan. But once we left, and it was always done with respect and with kindness and good linguistics, when you leave there, you've got an entire team of players at the highest level knowing you've got the best plan, all right? And you've got each other's back. So allow that. And secondly, and a lot of people forget about this, they talk about communication and they think it's an email or a poster or a podcast. It's a two-way street, okay? Communication is being communicated with. You must have your ears open and you must allow, as I've said, time and space for your A players to grow and to be able to communicate with you. They're going to feel better for it, but most importantly, you're going to learn an incredible amount.
Yeah, I agree. So, and the communication, is a big thing for me. I'm all about, you need to listen to your employees, you need to talk, you need to understand. And the whole ears open, I always kind of live by the mantra, you've got two ears, rather large ones, 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen twice as much as you speak. And when you're working with A players, there's no more important kind of point for me than to really listen to them and understand where they want to go, and then communicate your vision to them. And a point that I want to make on it as well, and I think I mentioned it earlier, is not only communicate to the team where kind of the individual path that they're on, but make sure the whole team knows the collective path that they're on and where the business is going and what part they play in where the business is going, what part that stallion's pulling, etc. To make sure that they're all on the understanding and it's been communicated to them, this is where we want to be.
Couldn't agree more. It's basically a centralized vision with individualized ways of communicating it to the team and making sure they're on board. I mean, moving on to the final sort of big meaty point for today. I feel this really strongly that you've got to allow your teams to grow. If you're working with serious talents, you've got to give them space. You've got to allow them to grow. Bad management is keeping them down. Bad management is keeping them doing that task repeatedly. Good leadership is giving them space, letting them stretch themselves, talking to them about trying new things, and then letting them do it. Let them fail. Let them make mistakes. This is great learning, but make sure you're communicating all the time and letting them know what you're doing. You're not letting them fail on a world stage. A great leader will stand in front of his boss and go, my team did an amazing job when it goes right. And stand there and go, I messed up when the team have done a bad job. All right? You take that on the chin. You take the mistakes and let your team learn. But you must push them out front. I worked for a guy, again, I've talked about, called Mike Hoff. Amazing guy. No one was better at standing back from the team when he was getting praised for a job well done and going, it wasn't me, it's these guys. It was Simon, it was John, it was Francis. It's these guys who stood there and did it. And you feel, as a team member, amazing, okay? He also gave us risky projects to do. He'd be there in the background. He'd be there to support, but he pushed us and stretched us. It's fantastic. And my final point on this is, if you really have got a team of A players, you need to invest in them. You need some capital investment in these guys in their development, okay? I think the quote goes something like, imagine spending all this money and they leave, but imagine not investing this money and them staying. You need to take the risk that you might invest a lot of money into these people and they might move on at some point. That's all right. Furthering someone's career is nothing but a good thing, okay? They'll stay with you longer if you invest in them. They want to learn. A players want to learn, want to develop, want to get new skills, want to get better and maximize the skills they've already got. You can't keep them down. You must push them forward and give them the tools. If they want some executive coaching from outside, it's going to cost you, I know, a few grand a year. It's worth it. They will stay. They will pay that back in spades if they're the right people. I think our listeners, I'm running out of breath. I think our listeners, you can see this subject so close to my heart. They must be getting bored of my voice. So, look, on growth, is there anything you want to add, Victoria? And then it'd be awesome if you could kind of summarize today and give us some takeaways. I'm just going to have a nap and,
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, you stole my line. So I normally give quotes. And the quote you're referring to, I think it's a Richard Branson one. And it's, what if we invest in all of these people and they leave? And it's, what if we don't invest in them and they stay? So no more stealing my quotes. But no, I mean, investors in people, and I'm a big advocate for this, and it's not just talking, having a plaque on the wall, really investing in everybody, and especially your A players, because you've attracted this brilliant talent. You need to retain it. You need to understand what that takes to retain them, and you need to help them grow. That will be part of your retention strategy. So yeah, I mean, I just really want to summarize what we've talked about today. And the first thing I think we've kind of really touched on is, first of all, why is it important to nurture your A players? And we've summarized that, I think, pretty well, Si, with you need them to be successful. You need this talent to be successful and make sure your product, service, business growth and plans are successful. Second key point I think we covered is identifying skills. So making sure you've identified people's strengths, weaknesses, and then that everybody is aware of who's got what strength and how we can use them collaboratively, deep cross collaboration, and as a collective to be able to develop, grow and drive the business forward. Nurturing that talent, so don't let your talent go to waste. If you've got this talent, if you've brought them on board, look after them, grow them, develop them, and that you will get a return on your investment, like you said, Si, tenfold. Another point is attitude versus skills. It goes without saying that skills can be taught. Obviously, there's some scenarios there where attitude won't trump skills if you're talking medical profession, etc. But yeah, we need the attitude and the cultural fit. 100% will always trump skills, so it's key to keep that in your mind when you're looking at your talent. The last point I just really want to kind of, I hope that we've talked about enough and kind of hammered home is communicate. Listen twice as much as you speak. Make sure you understand where your team wants to go individually and collectively, and they understand where you want to go individually and collectively as well. So that would be my summary. Anything you want to add, Si?
Only to say that, I mean, I suppose everyone's different, but I think most leaders that I've spoken to, and I certainly feel it, is there's nothing more rewarding in your career than facilitating someone else's growth. Okay. And if they're a difficult but talented A player, all the better. It's wonderful. I've got some guys I've worked with in my career, and they're flying all over the place, doing some amazing stuff. And it just gives me an enormous sense of pride because I find it really rewarding. And it's a lot harder to manage really good talent, as I'm sure some of the people who've managed me will say, than managing underperformance. Managing underperformance is easy. It's mind-bogglingly boring and depressing, but it's easy. Managing talent's really, really hard. That's it, really.
Really rewarding, Si.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Do you want to give us some takeaways? Give them some work to do?
Yeah, of course. So as you know, guys, we'll try to give you 3 things to do on the back of these podcasts. Hopefully you feel like you've got to take away an action point to take away from the 25 to 30 minutes you spent listening to us. And obviously, once again, thank you for that. So first thing that we want you to do is to hold a team meeting to identify everyone's strengths. Are there areas where you've doubled up? Are there areas where you've got gaps? Just really sit down, list those out and identify all of those areas. Include yourself in it. So don't just do it for your team. You need to include yourself, and you need to hold your hands up. And like I said, don't be the smartest person in the room and say, I'm not very good at this, but I am good at this. And if you lead with that, then your team will be more than happy to follow and to do the same. Next takeaway I want you to do is to ask everybody what they think the business goal is. So get their actual understanding of what they think your business goal is, what your plans are, where you eventually want to get to, and also what part do they play in getting you there. So make sure you get everyone's understanding of that. And then if you can, privately draft some notes on your team members and work out their preferred communication style and deal with it. Like you said, Si, you'll get people that need a call once a week, but you'll get other people who want to speak to you every hour. And you need to adapt to that. And it can be challenging, but it's really, really important, because if you don't communicate, the rest of this falls flat on its face.
Absolutely, it does. I think that's some great tasks. I think this is really interesting. This is part 1 of 2. We've already got some notes for the second, but I'd love if we can get some people engaged and writing to us. If there's nothing else from you, Victoria, I'm just going to say thanks and goodbye to everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening, everyone.